I'm here today with Maleka Diggs, who is known as the Disruptor of Monoliths, or is that a piece that you created?
It's what I created for myself.
It's her title. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And the founder of the Eclectic Learning Network. She is a trainer, presenter, community organizer. She serves families, learning institutions, and other organizations who are committed to decolonizing race, education, and parenting, or R.E.P. practices. She is also the co-founder of Philly Children's Movement, a multiracial and multi-generational collective of families talking, playing, and raising up for racial justice. Her work explores the intersections of race, parenting, and education, their impact on Black and Brown peoples, and those within underrepresented communities, while exploring ways to disrupt the cycle of institutionalized education through unschooling and self-directed learning approaches. Welcome, Maleka. I'm so glad to have you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm just thankful that these types of platforms are available.
Yes. So maybe we could start with your entry into motherhood and how that informed your work.
Wow, my entry was a surprise. Like so many
Yes.
parents, it wasn't something that it was something that I had in the back of my mind at some point, but not the moment that it happened. I was definitely the mama who did not believe the tests, the pregnancy test. I bought 3.
Wow.
And then I finally went to the doctors, and my midwife just looked at me and said, Mazel tov. And I was like, okay. So, it was something that just kind of showed up for me. And at the moment, I'm not thinking about where I am, exactly right now. But in that moment, I was filled with so many fears and uncertainty of just where to go and how to be. And with so many things that I had done throughout my life up until that point, parenting was not an area that I had any lived experience with. Nothing. So it was one of the first areas of my life where I'm really pulling from my bag. I'm pulling from my bag of my childhood, what I experienced as a child through my parents, family members, what I experienced in school. And I just took that and used it as a template. And that was the best, worst thing that I could have ever done, because children are amazing in that they give you the most authentic reflection of yourself at every given moment. And they really started to show me, like no other person could, exactly what was in my bag.
Yeah.
And you're unhinged. It's it's just a transformation. And it's not one of those transformations that happens, years 0 to 3 or anything like that. This is a transformation that is still happening with 2 daughters who are 13 and 15, because they will always be my children. And there will always be room for stretching and kind of auditing my bag, so to speak, and knowing when to pull out from that bag and when not to.
Yeah. 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 It's such a process of unfolding that just never ends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how did you come to the work that you're in now?
My daughters.
Your daughters.
Did
you have a background in sort of racial justice work before they came in?
Outside of just being a Black woman existing?
Right.
That's my experience. My experience is empirical, and it's in me. It's in all parts of me generationally. So do I carry that knowledge? Most definitely. So that shows up. But as far as from a schooling perspective, no, that wasn't my focus at all. I was actually, previous to that, interior design was what I did. And live music performance, management and things like that. So this was something that truly was a shift that called me versus me calling it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like many parents, public school is where it's at. And that was my focus, to travel in the same footsteps as so many folks before me. Race here, not an issue, just this is what you do,
Right.
by and large. And anything outside of that is considered taboo. And I really didn't have a strong understanding of homeschooling previous to my children. I worked with young folks who were homeschoolers, but that was it. And there's a whole bunch of taboos, some myths, but some of it is very real for certain families. And I went, like many parents, to enroll my children into their public school. And unfortunately, I encountered some racism, some bias. The principal did not believe that I lived in the area in which I did, and asked me for more, for additional proof of residence, even though I had everything there, and there was nothing at all about what I provided that would be, everything was consistent.
Right.
So, I really am not the person to lead with pulling the race card, but through this conversation, that's just where that's where I landed. And for me in that moment, I had to make a decision. One, this wasn't new. Yeah. This questioning of my identity, proof of my existence beyond what I'm saying, beyond what I'm providing, that's nothing new. What was new here was that this was now a new generation of young folks who were witnessing this. And in that moment, I had to decide, am I going to take this as business as usual, or am I going to do something about it? And to not want to rock the boat is super safe. It's a way in which part of my upbringing was definitely, that was carved into my upbringing, not to rock the boat, unless you really feel pushback. And that moment would not have been considered a major pushback in my world. That would have just been one of those, yep, this is what it is. Let me find yet again another form of documentation.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that. And that decision for me was pivotal and very much a marker into where I am today. Because when I walked out of those doors, I just never returned. And what showed up because of that, I honestly do not believe I would be experiencing it right now if I had.
Wow. And so was that the moment that you took them out of public school?
Yeah, they never even enrolled.
Okay,
We never even got to the enrollment process. We were turned away or questioned at the door of enrollment. Yeah. So as soon as, after that incident, I walked away. I let out a lot of steam. I made a lot of calls, and I sat with my thoughts deeply. And what I just came to the conclusion to is, if this is the leader of this school, what is happening already for the existing young people who are there, for the parents, the educators, in a predominantly white and affluent neighborhood with over 80% people of color, which don't live in that neighborhood. There's a lot of dynamics at play, and these are all the subtle nuances, but deeply impactful, because they are seed planters. There isn't anyone in leadership who looked like me, who looked like my daughters or my partner, but they were young kids who did. So sometimes that feels like a silver lining. And oftentimes you just have to accept it as that's what is, that you are always going to be a minnow in a sea of whiteness and pervasive whiteness. And for me, I no longer wanted to keep perpetuating those seeds, but I knew that also meant that I would have to be sacrificing the American dream, so to speak, or I would have to disrupt these colonized ideas that I have, that were most definitely set in within me through all sorts of folks throughout my experience. I would be breaking that. Yeah. So me breaking that meant that my daughters were not going to school, that we started the homeschool journey. I was still scared though. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't get me wrong. I was literally moving within fear. Yeah. It was not one of those, yes, I feel great and this is what I'm going to do. Absolutely not. I still went online. I still looked at all the things, did all the research, did all the data, and what I would today call very schoolish approach to figuring out what home education is. And after about a year to 2 years of virtual schooling, we walked away from it all. We walked away from all of the coercive, data-driven, predetermined benchmark grade age ratio BS that I grew accustomed to believing was the only way, not just a way, regardless of whether I agree with it or not. It is a way to learn,
Right.
but it is not the way to learn. And for our family, that way is not our way.
Yeah. Yeah. And was there like a pivotal moment, or was this just through that 2 year period, just feeling like this was not working in order to move into more of a, I guess, unschooling kind of approach?
Definitely, because, virtual schooling, well, the one that we were enrolled in, the only difference between a brick and mortar in this space was the location. There
Yeah.
was still the same curriculum, um, the same invisibility to Blackness, to honor and respect it beyond the month of February. It just wasn't there. And things like diversity and inclusion, these were all words that were used, but it wasn't reflected throughout the entire system. And it didn't matter that I was home. For me, in a sense, it almost felt worse, because now I am modeling
Uh-huh.
this marionette, right? I'm just a marionette at this point, and all I am doing is bringing schoolishness right into the home.
Right.
And I can't look at anyone else in that moment. I have to look at myself because I accepted it. So for me, going through that was enough for me to be, though I was fearful, I was less fearful about what was on the other side, what I hadn't experienced,
Uh-huh.
versus staying fearful of what I already knew. It's like, because I can tell the future, so to speak. But
Yeah.
with unschooling, there is no future telling. There is no other template that I can look to that says this is exactly what unschooling is, because that is the complete opposite of that. There is no special how to do WikiHow on
Right.
this. And you can find that in other forms of learning, where you can find that checklist and say, okay, I have my planner, I have my curriculum, I have my this, I'm good to go. And all those check marks equal success.
Right.
For me, that's just naive in general,
Yeah.
regardless of who you are and what you do. That as long as you check off a box that you've completed, and you can, and this is long-term retention, that takes a special person to be able to do that. And if we're talking for young people, that's K through 12,
Mm-hmm.
17 years of knowledge, that they're supposed to be able to step out into the world as young adults and be able to make decisions, and have agency and autonomy to do so. I'm not sure that the current system allows there to be any practice with
Right.
that through 0 to 17 or whatever is legal, of legal age in the state that folks are in.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And so what did that process of transitioning look like for you?
Transitioning, I've had so many transitions, which
Well, you went from well, no, you never went to school. You just did the virtual school at home. So from
mhm,
that into more of a unschooling approach.
yeah. Oh man, it was gut wrenching. uh, this, of course, there's conversations around the big S word, socialization, which really wasn't a huge thing for me.
Hmm.
I got it, but it really didn't take a big hold. But media did. Media was definitely an area where I was very much still very set in my ways on figuring out data, and, oh, this amount of exposure means this, and then my children are going to be, have brain, all sorts of craziness that I was reading, and a lot of it very much fear-based.
Uh-huh.
Um, Not everything that I read, but so much of it was very much catered to just hiding. And as I sat there, I realized that if I'm hiding this from them now, when they arrive at this point where it's okay, what's going to happen? And if I'm exploring what partnership-based relationships look like, I am using these same things and I am gaining so much from them. Are there moments when I just want to engage it for empty reasons, just for the sake of engaging, whether it's a game or whether it's scrolling social media? Sure. Can I not extend that same level of exploration to my children? So it was painstaking. That was not something that came easy. Even to this day, I still have tinges of moments where I'm like, oh, too much. But I keep it within, right? It doesn't, like, for me, the unschooling journey and this transformation isn't about ignoring those knee-jerk feelings that you have throughout parenthood. It's about what we do with them. And that reaction, that pause that I take for myself before I blurt out something, I do a check-in with myself. Before you go any further, Maleka, what have you been doing today? And whatever it is I've been doing, am I in that moment placing more value on the work that I'm doing versus what they were doing? Just visually, like if I'm seeing them watch television and I've been in my office typing away and I come back and they're still watching the same show, am I in that moment saying that what I just did has more value? So these are the things that I ask myself, and that transition was a whole bunch of that. And if I'm being super frank, it's still a transition. Right. I don't know that there's a point in this where I can say for sure, oh, by this age, you should start seeing, because we're meeting young people where they are, and they are made up of all sorts of your traits and ones of their own. And if I think that this transition just stops at a certain time, not only do I do our family a disservice, it's the domino effect of that learning stops at a certain age. Because that's what all of this is for me. It's learning and living. I mean, unschooling, homeschooling, Montessori, like everybody has their terms, and I'm down with them all. Like if it works for your family, I'm here for it. But for me, it's living and learning. That is what we are doing. And we've been doing it ever since. And at this point, I'm not a person who lives with regret at all, but I am so thankful that I made the decision to walk away from something that I was so conditioned to accepting as ideal.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And look at everything that's unfolded since then.
Yeah.
So tell us about the Eclectic Learning Network and your work with that.
Yes. So my daughter's birthday, just our time walking around and meeting other parents and hearing other stories and connecting with parents who look like me or within the same financial bracket as me, who felt they were between a rock and a hard place, that it's very few people who could argue that there are not issues within the education system, right? Just pick a topic.
Yeah.
There is going to be some area where improvements can be made depending on your lens. But you know that going in, but you say, well, what other options do I have? I don't make a ridiculous income, and I have too much melanin, or I don't follow a particular religious faith or spiritual practice or anything like that. Those are the three main areas where folks tend to get pushback when it comes to whether they should engage in homeschooling for Black and Brown families, where it's like, oh, well, I can't afford it. And well, homeschooling is for white folks, but we're not Christians. And because these are the things that are just shared with us in mass quantities.
Yeah.
They're not showing all the other beautiful sides to this. It still looks very schoolish and as if you have to indoctrinate yourself yet again. But if you're going to indoctrinate yourself, it should be rooted in liberation, not in
Right.
not in ridiculous harm for generations. So for me, Eclectic Learning Network initially was a resource. All I wanted to do was help out as many parents as I could so that they didn't have to go through what I went through. Because for me, just the research alone and sitting with myself, and that's most of the research is just sitting with myself, not being online all the time, because you're going to get pulled in.
Right.
You got to sit with these questions deeply. And that's what I did. And I just, if there was any type of just relief that I could offer a parent who was looking at this, and especially a Black and brown parent, or especially a parent who doesn't feel like they have the salary, they would likely go to private school, but money says no.
Yeah.
Just to provide them something, because it is that those first couple of years are daunting. And especially if you live in a state like I do, where we still have evaluations and testing that still has to be done, there's still schoolishness that creeps in, and it still becomes challenging. But I just wanted to be able to provide that for families. Here are some things I did. These are some things that I saw. Here are some programs that could possibly work for you. I created programs on my own. I had a member base at the time. And we used the city as our classroom. It was no longer this four-walled ceiling environment. It was everywhere we went, whether it was hikes in the Wissahickon, whether it was hanging out at the recreation center for play day, whether it was Brazilian drumming classes. I really wanted to come up with things that were truly eclectic, that allowed young people to learn through multiple mediums, all as valuable as the other, and be able to touch their passions and their interests, like ignite them from within without any testing, without forcing them to sit in a dedicated space for hours on end, but a space where they could just be. And for parents to also be able to witness and naturally observe their children being themselves, not from a place of shame or guilt or trying to figure out, well, that must be your dad's side or that must be your other mom's side. You know, it's, this for me is about all of us learning. And that's what I really wanted Eclectic Learning Network to be. And over the years, 6 years now, it has evolved and expanded in so many beautiful ways, where initially just Philadelphia based, it's now a global company. And I support organizations all over the globe, whether it's a global meetup virtually, or whether it's me physically going and supporting communities, organizations, families across the globe who really are committed to decolonizing their R.E.P practices, and want to be able to do it in a way where they're not going to feel shamed for doing that.
Yeah. Wow. It's really incredible work that, you know, just to be in that process yourself, and then kind of inviting everyone else into your own field of transformation as you continue to push your own edge. Yeah. So how can people get in touch with you if they wanted to join the network? Is it open, or how does it work?
So the network it's us networking. So we don't have an actual membership anymore, unless you would want to be part of our Patreon family. Okay. And that's for folks who are very much interested in keeping ELN afloat. So like sustaining this business so that I can keep providing support to folks and not be hindered by income in order for these engagements to happen. And then other ways that folks can support or learn more about ELN is directly through the website, eclecticlearningnetwork.com. If you look under sustenance, which is under community, you're going to find all sorts of offerings. And I just welcome anyone if this is even remotely resonating with you, just check it out and see what's there. And if something pings your interest, just reach out to me, Maleka at eclecticlearningnetwork.com, and I'd be happy to support you in any way that I'm able.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm really inspired by your work, and I'm excited to get to know you better through the monthly gatherings. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the mothers listening before we conclude?
You're doing just fine. Really. I mean, it's certain days feel like forever. Certain days can just feel like forever. And our children pull us in ways that are not comfortable. And sometimes it can lead to us feeling like we're a failure. And keep in that feeling creates a block in the relationship with your young people. They're seeing you for who you are, and you're the one sitting with how you're feeling. Don't compare yourself to what other people are doing. Figure out what works for you, what works for your family, respectfully, and feel through it. And when it shows up, it will show up, and it'll feel a lot better to walk hand in hand with your young person, knowing that your village, what you've created, is on your terms.
Thank you.
You're welcome.